The Tennessee Titans have named Mike McCoy as their interim head coach, and I'm going to tell you exactly what he needs to change on today's edition of Locked On Titans.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. On today's show, Mike McCoy was named as the Tennessee Titans interim head coach, and I'm going to tell you exactly what he needs to change from a macro level and just with the Tennessee Titans offense, particularly with Cam Ward. Also, we're going to talk about who some of the best head coaching candidates are for the Tennessee Titans long term. I'm going to go over the pros and cons of the best names out on the market, and we're going to talk about some names that aren't quite on the market yet, but that the Titans need to keep their eye on. Before we dive into all of it, I do want to thank you for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. You're not going to beat that anywhere else. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. Speaking of every day, shout out to my everydayers out there tuning in Monday through Friday. Couldn't do it without you guys. If you aren't an everydayer, you need to be one. Clearly, this is going to be a crazy finish to the season for the Tennessee Titans that will cap off with a big-time head coaching search. If you want to stay up to date, as informed, as locked in as possible, you got to stay here with me at Locked On Titans. But with all that being said, again, Mike McCoy announced as the interim head coach for the Tennessee Titans. That was one of the obvious paths that we talked about that would be possible not only on yesterday's emergency reaction show, but also earlier this season when it was obvious that Brian Callahan would not make it through the season. Now, the other changes on the coaching staff, Bill Callahan did leave with his son. No surprise there. But everybody else stayed in place. That means Nick Holes as the offensive coordinator. Bo Hardegree is the quarterback coach, and Hardegree will continue to be the play caller on offense for the Tennessee Titans. Denard Wilson on defense. Obviously, you're keeping Bones Fossil as the special teams coordinator. Scott Fuchs will manage the offensive line. A lot going on, but for the most part, everything is staying the same with Mike McCoy taking that interim head coaching role. And the most important thing that Mike McCoy needs to change, and the most important thing that he needs to do right now, is be a leader. And in Mike McCoy's press conference on Tuesday, that is something that he talked about. He said that I am a leader. That's my favorite thing to do, is to come in, lead the players, lead the coaching staff. That is what I enjoy doing, is being a leader. And that is the number one thing that the Tennessee Titans need right now. They need an adult in the room who's led an NFL franchise before. And when we talk about the best head coaching candidates for the Tennessee Titans and the pros and the cons, that is going to be something that I heavily value for this team. Look, Mike McCoy, not an exciting name. He's had his own failures in his past with the San Diego Chargers. Obviously was with Jacksonville last year before they moved on and got a new head coach as well. It's not all great on Mike McCoy's resume, but there's a lot of good on Mike McCoy's resume as well. A playoff win, winning seasons, all of that. But Mike McCoy isn't going to be the long-term head coach for the Tennessee Titans. I don't think that that's the case. But what Mike McCoy does bring to the table is some of the things that the Titans should be looking for in their long-term head coach, and that starts with the experience he has, because he has to be able to galvanize the locker room, to inspire the players, to lead the coaches, to have good practices where people are held accountable and the Titans do things the right way. I thought one of the most illuminating things that we found out over the last 24 hours, and look, you guys know how it goes. Whenever things like this happen, finally Brian Callahan's out the door, and all of a sudden all the skeletons in the closet start to come out. But the most damning thing that I heard was about the practice the Titans had last week. And Jeffrey Simmons came out publicly after the game on Sunday, and he said, we had one of our worst weeks of practice. And then it came out in an article on The Athletic that during practice on last Thursday, Jeffrey Simmons stopped the practice and told J.C. Latham, you have been terrible for 10 straight plays. This isn't good enough. We got to start over. The fact that, look, I love the leadership from Jeffrey Simmons to do that. The fact that a player had to step in and say what the offense is doing. Think about that. A defensive player had to stop the offense and say, this isn't good enough. This isn't up to our standard. You know what that tells me? Is that the coaches would have allowed it. The coaches wouldn't have stepped in. And Jeffrey Simmons, along with Amani Hooker, are the only players on this team that were around for when the team was well run. So they know, and Simmons said in the locker room, I know what it looks like to get better throughout the season. I know what it feels like to stack weeks on top of weeks to get better. And that means that Jeffrey Simmons was right there to say, this is not good enough. This is not what it looks like. How can you come off a win like that against Arizona and not take that motivation and not take that momentum into the next week and have one of your worst weeks of practice ever? And Mike McCoy in his press conference on Tuesday admitted that that was true. See, that's what I think we've learned through this process, is Brian Callahan had zero accountability for his players. He just wasn't a mean enough guy, a hard-nosed enough guy to say, shut the F up, this isn't good enough, we're going to do better. He just wasn't the guy that would get in your face and tell you, that ain't good enough. And at the end of the day, part of leadership is fear. You have to be afraid of the consequences that will come to you if you let down your leaders. That is a part of it. And Brian Callahan did not instill fear in any player. They knew they could get away with less than great effort. They knew that they wouldn't be held accountable. And for Jeffrey Simmons to have to go to the offense and say, what you guys are doing right now is not good enough, it's incredibly disappointing to hear. And to me, it's another reason why I don't understand why all the fans are freaking out about the press conference between Chad Brinker and Mike Morganzi. We all wanted Brian Callahan fired, and then he got fired, and then they told you Brian Callahan wasn't good enough, the team wasn't growing, the team wasn't improving, so we fired him. And everyone's still mad. Oh, their answers weren't good enough. We need to hear that from Amy Adams Strunk. Why? We all knew that it wasn't good enough. We all wanted Brian Callahan fired. Why is everybody mad about the reasoning and the explanation that we all already knew for why Brian Callahan should be fired? It doesn't make any sense to me. It's just being mad, the same mad you were that the team's not any good. That's all that it comes down to. But regardless, again, the number one thing that Mike McCoy has to change is he has to be a leader. He has to hold guys accountable. And I know a lot of you are going to say, well, he was already on the staff. So if he wasn't doing that already, why do we think he's going to do it now? That's a valid question. But my answer to you would be, he's a senior offensive advisor. He's not even a position coach. He's not even an offensive coordinator. He's not it's like, to give an example, Will Levis. Last year, Will Levis even said, hey, it's different being the starting quarterback. You know, when I'm a backup to Ryan Tannehill and I'm the third string quarterback behind Malik Willis, it's kind of hard to be the leader that I want to be when I'm not in a leadership position. So it would be fair to say Mike McCoy's been on the staff. If he was going to hold guys accountable and do this and that, he would have done it already. That's fair, but I'm sorry, there is a big difference in the amount of leadership you're going to try to show when you're a senior offensive advisor versus being the interim head coach for the team. So call it copium if you want, but I have a little bit more faith that Mike McCoy will be a different leader now that he's been given this opportunity versus the opportunity he was in before. And moving forward, outside of the big picture leadership and accountability changes that have to happen here, obviously you want to see changes with Cam Ward. And I thought Mike McCoy's answer to what he needs to do with Cam Ward was great. He said, it's all about players over plays. which is just a different version of it's the Jimmies and the Joes, not the X's and the O's, right? It's the same thing that Mike Vrabel used to say. But he's like, we need to worry about not what our best plays are, but what our players do best. And that's the number one criticism that I've had of Brian Callahan throughout the process is he is so worried, or was, we got to talk past tense now, right? Thank the heavens. But he was so worried about his plays, his system, what he wanted to do, that he didn't mold to what his players were best at. So get Cam Ward in more play action. Get him under center more and get him movement outside of the pocket. Do some more RPO stuff. Less slow motion run plays with these slow motions into the backfield. Less wide receiver and tight end screens. More quick hitting running back screens. You can't just get rid of the screen game, guys. The screens are too effective. Not for the Titans this year, but in general, screens are too effective. And teams are coming downhill on the Titans. You have to be able to run screens. But stop with these wide receiver screens out to the perimeter. Can we run a slip screen to a running back for once? Can we try it? And less max protection. It's not working. Keeping 7 guys in to block and having no checkdowns for Cam Ward is not working. So scrap it. Do what the players do well, not what you want to run. So that's the changes that I hope to see from Mike McCoy. Again, my overall point here is, though, Mike McCoy's not going to be the head coach for this team long term. So who can it be? Let's go through some of the top tier coaching options and talk a little bit about pros and cons with those options.
I'm Cody Rourke from Locked On Broncos, and this episode is brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. This is Peloton's most advanced equipment yet, giving you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or you're cross-training with your favorite instructors like Alex Toussaint. It's training reimagined to make your workout more personal. Peloton is built for breakthroughs. With features that help you plan, stay motivated, and hit peak performance, you can let yourself run, lift, flex, and go while Peloton handles all the rest. Plus, Peloton IQ provides real-time strength coaching, tracking your progress and suggesting weights that challenge you so you can get stronger. Plus, the new movement tracking camera, it counts your reps and corrects your form in real time, making sure every rep is safer and smarter. So, let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NFL season is obviously here, folks, and FanDuel still has an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet. Put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel, whether it be player props, money lines, spreads, over-unders, putting all that stuff together to build a same-game parlay. Even if you miss kickoff, you can get in on the action with live betting. It makes watching football even more exciting when you got a little something riding on it. Whether you're a casual fan or you love diving into stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. The NBA season, the NHL season right around the corner as well. So what are you waiting for? Make sure that you visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Once again, that's FanDuel.com to get started. Titans fans, let's continue today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We talked about Mike McCoy's press conference and the changes that he needs to make going forward to get this team back on track and show that growth that we're all looking for. But now we got to talk about realistic head coaching candidates for the Tennessee Titans, because the reality is it's not going to be Mike McCoy long term. And I think anybody who's being logical knows that. But who could be a logical option before we dive in? Thanks again for making Locked On Titans your first to listen each and every day. But number one to me is Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy has to be, in my opinion, the most realistic, the most logical, and the best option available for the Titans as things stand right now. And again, what are the pros for Mike McCarthy? Number one, experience. This is a professional football coach that has led multiple programs to consistent success. Obviously, with the Green Bay Packers, he wins a Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers. That was a while ago. Fair enough. But with the Dallas Cowboys, he led 3 straight 12-win seasons, including a playoff win in Dallas. And I find it hilarious that some Titans fans are like, oh, that's mid. There wasn't enough success. He had 3 12-win seasons and won a playoff game. The Titans are 4-19 in their last 23 games. You want to add in Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel went 6-18 in his last 24 games. So, quick math on that. That's 9 wins in basically 2.5 seasons. That's a disaster, folks. That is a disaster. Okay? So, how can you be that bad as the Titans and then look at Mike McCarthy and say, oh, 3 straight 12-win seasons, a playoff win, that's not good enough. What are we talking about here? This team needs to get back on track. They need to have some semblance of professionalism. They need to have some stability. They need to be an actual professional football team, and Mike McCarthy can obviously deliver that. Okay? Not only that, but he's an offensive guy who got the absolute best out of Dak Prescott, got the absolute best out of Aaron Rodgers. Now, those are the pros. The cons to Mike McCarthy are he's not an innovator. He's not one of these hot shot offensive coaches like a Cliff Kingsbury or Joe Brady or, the Sean McVays and Kyle Shanahan's of the world. He's not some cutting edge innovator. Okay? That's not the case. And there have been problems in the past with like time management decisions, managing timeouts, 2-minute drill stuff. Those are absolutely fair criticisms of Mike McCarthy. But again, with where this football team is right now, there's no culture, there's no leadership, there's no accountability, there's no semblance of realistic NFL football here. So, to me, Mike McCarthy would be a Mike Mularkey style head coach. And I think, honestly, that's what would be best for the Titans right now, and that would be the safest option that they could take. If you want to go with someone with experience who adds a little bit more sauce to the mix, Cliff Kingsbury is the next guy that I'm bringing up. I know. Cliff Kingsbury has leadership question marks. Can he be a real head coach? Is he just an offensive coordinator? I think that's fair. I think it's fair to wonder whether Cliff Kingsbury is a true leader in an NFL locker room. And that makes him less appealing to me than Mike McCarthy, who we know Mike McCarthy can be a leader in an NFL locker room. But Cliff Kingsbury is an innovative offensive mind. Look what he did with Jaden Daniels in Daniels' rookie season last year, and tell me that you wouldn't want him working with Cam Ward. He also does have experience being an NFL head coach, and whether it's Bill Belichick, whether it's Andy Reid, whether it's Jim Harbaugh, whether it's, go down the line of how many coach, Dan Quinn for the Washington Commanders is another name to bring up. I mean, I could go over 20 names in the NFL who are retread head coaches, who were fired as a head coach before and still went on to win Super Bowl. Bruce Arians is another guy. Look at Todd Bowles in Tampa Bay and the success that he's had. He was fired from the New York Jets. So please don't tell me he was fired by that team. He was fired by the Cardinals. No way he can be a good coach, because that just totally ignores the reality of the NFL. Sometimes, guys, and I think a lot of people who don't realize this are younger people who still haven't been fired from a job or haven't been let go or haven't had to quit a job they thought would work out. People who haven't been through struggle and overcame that struggle to go on and succeed. They don't understand how life works right now. But sometimes you have to fail to succeed. Sometimes you have to lose to learn how to win. How many examples do you need of that in life, in other sports? Michael Jordan has said, I had to lose those games against the Celtics, against the bad boy Pistons. I had to lose those games to learn what it took to win. So Cliff Kingsbury, is he a leader? That is the concern. That's the con here. But you can't just say because he was fired by the Cardinals that he'll never be a head coach in the NFL and be a good one ever again. And by the way, he did take the Cardinals to 11-5 and go to the playoffs in his first year. So you add that to the Jaden Daniels success, the innovative offensive mind that he is. Cliff Kingsbury makes a ton of sense. Joe Brady, a guy, the pros here. He is a scheme guy. He is an innovator. He is someone who's got the best out of Josh Allen and who has done a lot with the Buffalo Bills offense, even though they don't have a ton of star-studded talent. Their offensive line looks like one of the best in the NFL, and I know the Bills just lost to the Falcons, so the dumbest person you know is going to say, oh, Joe Brady, he sucks. They just lost to the Falcons. Well, they put up 41 points against the Ravens in week 1. What would you have said after that? So this week to week, oh, they lose, he's a bad coach. They win, he's a good coach. That is really stupid and a dumb way to evaluate people on a week-to-week basis. Doesn't make any sense. But the problem is, Joe Brady has never been a head coach before. So you just did this with Brian Callahan. You just went with a first-time head coach who you weren't certain if he can lead a team, lead an organization, lead a locker room. You would be dealing with that same uncertainty and risk with a guy like Joe Brady. So I like Joe Brady, but how much of that is Josh Allen looking good? And again, we just did that with Brian Callahan. Now, at least Joe Brady calls plays. Brian Callahan didn't even call plays before he got hired. So you can at least lean on that. But I admit Joe Brady is much more risky, in my opinion, than a Cliff Kingsbury or a Mike McCarthy. You go to the defensive side of the ball. A guy like Brian Flores makes a ton of sense. He is a scheme guy. It would be a DeMeco Ryans style hire. You would be looking to get your own DeMeco Ryans. Great defensive scheme. He is a leader in the locker room. He does have previous head coaching experience. Check, check, check. But the problem with Brian Flores is he's a defensive head coach. Is he going to get the offensive coordinator hire right? Even if he does get it right, can he get it right twice? Can he get it right 3 times? And how's that going to affect Cam Ward when you're changing offensive coordinators every 2 years? Those are concerns that are willing to have. I think Vance Joseph for the Denver Broncos, very similar profile as Brian Flores. Some other names quickly that I am not interested in. Matt Nagy, he's got previous experience. He's an offensive guy, the Kansas City connection, but his leadership and time management and game management were all question marks in Chicago. However, he did take Mitch Trubisky to a 12-4 record in the playoffs. But now, would you just be hiring a guy who Patrick Mahomes makes him look good? Those are all fair questions. I'm not interested in Matt Nagy, though. Arthur Smith is a name that's being thrown around there, but I think we know Arthur Smith is not a head coach. His personnel usage and deployment was despicable in Atlanta. He refused to use his best players. He is the definition of, I'm more important than my players. My scheme and my plays is more important than using my best players. I don't want anything to do with Arthur Smith. Totally out on Arthur Smith. John Gruden, guys, I said it before, he's in ongoing legal litigation against the NFL. He's not getting hired. And I think the game's passed him by anyway. He needs to stay in the media. Jesse Minter is another defensive option, but no head coaching experience. Jim Harbaugh is the true metronome and heartbeat of everything that Jesse Minter's been a part of. The defensive scheme is impressive. He is a young guy who could grow with a young team, but I have too many concerns about Jesse Minter. I'm not saying he can't be a good head coach, but I don't know if he's the right fit for the Tennessee Titans. Mike Kafka, one of the worst options I've ever heard. Mike Kafka, they're saying, oh, he's making Jackson Dart look good right now. Brian Dable is making Jackson Dart look good right now. Also, everybody's all, Daniel Jones, wow, look at the way Daniel Jones looks. Shane Steichen makes Daniel Jones look like a totally different player. Well, who was working with him before? Mike Kafka. So Mike Kafka was the reason that Daniel Jones looked like crap then, if you're going to give the credit to Shane Steichen for making him look good. Mike Kafka is one of the dumbest names I've ever heard. It just makes zero sense whatsoever. But here's the reality. There are some coaches out there who I think make sense for the Titans, who would go to the top of my list, that just aren't fired yet, but they might be fired pretty soon. Let's talk about some names the Titans need to keep an eye on that aren't quite available just yet. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. The NFL season is back, and honestly, there's no better feeling than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle between the queues, the login screens, prices jumping at checkout. It's frustrating. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. Game Time is fast, it's easy, it's backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price that you see is the price that you pay. I pulled up Game Time recently, and a couple of taps, I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite NFL games for as low as $100. And heck, Titans tickets might end up being even cheaper than that. I buy NFL, NBA, WNBA, MLB, concert, comedy tickets, all on Game Time. So make sure that you download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Titans fans, let's cap off today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We talked about Mike McCoy's opening press conferences and the changes that he needs to make. We talked about my top head coaching candidates and kind of the pros and cons to all of them, because they all have pros and cons. Everybody does. No one's a perfect option for the Titans. But I want to talk about some head coaching candidates that maybe aren't available yet, or aren't coordinators that are set to be available, because a coordinator you can hire to be your head coach, no problem. But there are some head coaches who might get fired soon that I think would make a ton of sense. And we start with Kevin Stefanski from the Cleveland Browns. Number one, the Cleveland Browns are a disaster organization, not too dissimilar to the Tennessee Titans. Dysfunction in the front office, bad personnel decisions and moves, a ravenous fan base, and the Browns fan base is even more insane than the Titans. I'm from Ohio. I'm sorry, folks. That is the case. In the good and the bad times, the Browns fan base is just insane. So Kevin Stefanski is uniquely qualified to deal with all of that yuck. You know what I mean? But looking at the good, Stefanski has won Coach of the Year twice, and he's deserved it both times. He has gotten the absolute best out of lackluster talent. He is a guy who has taken a Joe Flacco-led team to an 11-5 record. He got Baker Mayfield to the playoffs and had them competing with Kansas City in the divisional round. At the end of the day, Kevin Stefanski, in my opinion, is one of the best head coaches in the entire NFL. And if the Browns' dysfunction and impatience and insanity are going to lead them to firing him, the Titans should be first in line to get Kevin Stefanski. First in line. And look, you could say, I've seen people say, why would I want a guy who who ran Baker Mayfield out of town and wanted to trade for Deshaun Watson? I'm sorry, I don't believe that Kevin Stefanski wanted to do that. That was the owner of the Browns, Jim Haslam. If not the owner, that's Andrew Berry, the general manager. How are we going to sit here? That's like saying Mike Vrabel traded A.J. Brown. We all know that that's not true. Why would you blame the head coach for personnel and owner decisions? I don't understand that. And, I've had people say, well, Kevin Stefanski got up there at the press conference after they got Deshaun Watson and said he was on board. Well, what do you think he's going to do? You're at the press conference with a trade for Deshaun Watson already completed, and he's going to say, I think my bosses are morons. I didn't want to do this. I don't want this quarterback that we just got. This is all terrible. I think we made a big mistake. He's not going to do that. What are we talking about? So if Kevin Stefanski becomes available, boom, to the top of the list for me as the option for the Tennessee Titans. Another guy that would make a ton of sense is John Harbaugh. There are some people that believe that John Harbaugh could part ways with the Ravens. And for a lot of my life, good Titans players have gone to the Ravens. Why don't we flip that? Why don't we bring a really good head ball coach in John Harbaugh to the Tennessee Titans? And if you're somebody who misses the CEO style coach, the guy who isn't calling plays on offense or defense but manages the whole team, that's John Harbaugh, who has a Super Bowl win, multiple playoff appearances, playoff wins, done it with multiple different kinds of quarterbacks, from a Joe Flacco type to a Lamar Jackson, has gotten the best out of teams that had a ton of injuries. I think John Harbaugh would be an excellent option. Now, some less likely options. I'm not acting like these guys are going to be fired, but just saying. Sean McDermott from the Buffalo Bills. Maybe he can't get the Buffalo Bills over the hump to the Super Bowl, but again, the Titans aren't trying to get to the Super Bowl right now. They just need to be a competent NFL team and get back to winning football. And Sean McDermott is clearly a leader who could command a team and run a professional organization if Buffalo decides to move on. Kyle Shanahan, I don't think there's any chance that Kyle Shanahan gets fired. But hey, if the 49ers injuries catch up to him, they don't make the playoffs, maybe the 49ers could just be looking for a change. Again, like I said when Mike Vrabel was fired, I don't think that Mike Vrabel is a bad coach. I just think it's time for change for the Titans. And sometimes good coaches, like Andy Reid when he got fired by the Eagles, good coaches get fired not because they're bad coaches, but because it's just time for a change. And maybe the 49ers will feel that way. Probably not, but you never know. If the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I got to give credit, my guy, Titan Film Room, Justin Graver, we laugh about this. But he's like, Titans need to trade for Mike Tomlin. Depending on what they give up, I would be on board for something like that if the Steelers have some sort of collapse this season, but I don't think that's going to happen. It's not realistic. But just saying, I would trade a third-round pick for Mike Tomlin. Same thing with Kyle Shanahan if he didn't want to get let go, but the 49ers just wanted to make a change. I would trade for them. Those are great coaches, Not as a head coach, but Mike McDaniel, the head coach from the Miami Dolphins, he's going to get fired soon. If the Titans go with a defensive head coach, like Brian Flores, Vance Joseph, Jesse Minter, or they go with, a CEO-style head coach who doesn't want to call plays, Mike McDaniels as the offensive coordinator would be absolutely fantastic. Mike McDaniel. I always want to put the S on. But just saying, there are a lot of options out there that may not seem like options right now that could become available by the time the Titans actually get started with their head coaching search in January. But with that being said, that is going to do it for me today, folks. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.